Do you ever watch a TV show or a movie and it starts to get kind of intense? Do you guys ever have that voice in the back of your head that just tells you, it's all going to work out? I'm nervous, but it's all going to work out. Because unless you're watching Game of Thrones, the main character's probably going to end up okay. I mean, as you're watching a movie, you know that if it's, for example, midway through a season, they're not going to kill off anyone important, unless you're, well, Game of Thrones. Or you're Star Trek The Next Generation, and Denise Crosby had a contract fight with the producers, and they needed an excuse to get rid of her. Generally, though, you know things are going to be fine because that's the way movies and TV shows go. Whatever the conflict is, the main character is either going to heroically sacrifice themselves and everything will be fine, or the main character will defeat the enemy and everything will be fine. It's always the same kind of story. And I think it's probably because viewers get a little bit cranky if someone they really like doesn't make it to the end of the story. But we know, whenever we watch these things, that it's going to be okay. It's an interesting phrase, that. It's going to be okay. It's really kind of non-committal, isn't it? It almost feels like they're there. It's all going to be fine. Or it makes you think of that scene in the movie Airplane when the hysterical woman is just, we're going to crash, and everybody makes the line to snap her out of it. Hilarious and terrible scene all at the same time. And sometimes when we hear people tell us that it's going to be okay, it doesn't always register, but sometimes it does. Sometimes we hear those words and we can kind of like start to think and go, maybe it is going to be okay. As we've been going through Job these past several weeks, it might feel like we're watching one of these kinds of movies. Like we're reading one of these stories where you kind of know things are going to work out, but you're just not quite sure how. Because Job started out as a wealthy man, if you remember. He lost all of his stuff, all of his kids, even his health, and he was miserable. He got the 38 chapters of terrible advice from his friends. Then God showed up and basically reminded Job that God could be trusted. Even when everything is chaotic around you, God can be trusted. But then we get to this little epilogue. And it's the epilogue that tells us that for Job, everything was okay. After he makes some sacrifices on behalf of his ill-advising friends, the Lord gave him twice as much as he had before. First, we hear that Job had 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. The daughters who were more beautiful than any daughters in all the land ever. And it just throws this little thing in. He gave them an inheritance with their brothers. That's like shocking beyond imagination. I mean, if you think way back to those olden times, women were something you inherited, not necessarily something that got an inheritance. So for Job to give his daughters a share along with their brothers is shocking. Something that for us seems rather normal. But for them, this is crazy. And then we find out just how much stuff Job got anew. Where before he had 7,000 sheep, now he has 14,000. Where before he had 6,000 camels, or 3,000 camels, now he has 6,000. Where before he had 1,000 oxen, now he has 2,000. And where before he had 500 donkeys, now he has 1,000. He even lived long enough to see his great-great-grandchildren. Everything was okay. Eventually. It was touch and go there in the middle, but it was all okay. As you read through the Bible, this idea that it's going to be okay comes up over and over and over and over again. In the Garden of Eden, right after Adam and Eve ate the fruit from the tree that was forbidden them, God left them with an "it's going to be okay," because he told them that someday a descendant of Eve would come and would crush the head of the deceiving serpent. A prophecy of Jesus all the way back in Genesis chapter 3. When God's people were living in a place where there was no food, and they were worried for their very lives, Jacob and his children stumbled across a long-lost brother whom they had sold into slavery, who gave them food because he happened to be in charge of Egypt. It was going to be okay. Years later, when the people of Israel were enslaved by those very same Egyptians, they remembered this promise that they were going to return to the promised land. And by God working through Moses and Joshua, they did. When one people group or another would oppress God's people, God would send judges to save them from that oppression over and over and over again. Even when the Babylonians invaded, conquered Jerusalem, and scattered the people around, the book of 2 Chronicles ends by telling about the people returning to their land. God was always reminding his people that it's going to be okay. Finally, when Jesus came, he preached kind of a similar message. To the poor, he told them, "You will be rich." To the hungry, he said, "You will be well fed." To the people who were persecuted, he said, "Blessed are you, for yours is the kingdom of heaven." And even when he talked about his own death, he always followed it right up with, "But after 3 days, I will rise again." As we get later in the New Testament, this message of hope starts to get even more clear, especially when we get to the book of Revelation. Because when the world is being destroyed around us, we can still remember that it's going to be okay. Because we know that, one, we can trust God. We remembered that from last week. And we know that, two, God keeps his promises. And he's given this promise to us. There in the future, we have a hope that God's dwelling place will be among the people. He will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things will pass away. It's going to be okay. Whatever is happening to us now, whatever is going on around us, because we can trust God and we can trust the things that God tells us, we can trust him to know that it will be okay. Now, that might not happen in this life. We might suffer here in this life and not be restored here. But that's why God promises us more. He doesn't just promise us a good life here, he promises us a best life in the life to come. He promises us that like he restored Job's fortunes, he will also restore ours. Sometimes that happens to us here on earth. I'm sure we can all look at folk who have been healed of something terrible and see them restored to health now. But we can also look at folk who didn't get healed quite the way that other folk did. But we know now of the promise that they are with God and that we will see them again. Because whatever happens, God reminds us over and over again, it's going to be okay. We can trust in that promise. No matter what's happening, whether our lives are going fairly well or whether our lives are as bad as Job's, we know that because God is trustworthy, because God is faithful, it's going to be okay. It doesn't matter if it's our health. It doesn't matter if it's things going on in church. It doesn't matter if it's things going on in politics. Whatever's going on, it's going to be okay. Why? Because God said so. And because God has come through so many times in the past, both in the Bible and in our own lives, when we hear those words, we know that they are true. And so we, like Job, can trust in that promise. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.